Okay, so another week. We are somehow halfway through November, which is like insane. Like I'm really mostly excited because it means that this shit's just getting a move on it and we could be back to summer. But it's also like what? And somehow we're here. But can you guys hear me? Tell me in the chat if you can. Okay. Um, let me know, maybe log back out and log back in, because sometimes Zoom just likes to screw with us. I know that's for sure. So somehow we're halfway through November, right? And I think that with that sentiment, because a lot of people have been sharing, they feel like time is just like passing by. I think the important thing is to realize the sneaky ways that we could be extra hard on ourselves. And things like feeling like time's flying by, all it takes, tell me if you guys relate, is that one little seed of, oh my God, I'm behind on blah, 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 because of how fast time is flying by. And it could be something like that nothing really fucking matters. Like, oh my God, I gotta go get the gift wrap, or I gotta go put the Christmas lights out, where it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a day late or not. No, but it plants that seed of, I'm not doing enough, or I'm behind, I don't have time. And then that's all that is needed for that panic to grow. Anyone relate, especially this time of year? There's so many things that we could be not doing well enough, quote unquote. So today we're going to dive into this because there's been a few things we've noticed, like the coaches and I have all noticed, as I always say, if it's a common theme throughout the calls, I like to bring it up on here. Because, and I want to teach you some new tools to deal with it, but if it's a common theme, that means that there's a reason. So probably going to be a good lesson. So from the coaches, I heard there's been a lot about expectations of ourselves, of just everything. Illness acceptance, burnout. These have all been topics that have got brought up a lot. Not so much the baby steps. And as you guys, most of you know, like it's not the what, it's the how. And I think this time of year, with how we're kind of all built to really give so much of a shit about doing well, that this time of year is kind of where inadequacies start to blossom. So let's dive in. Okay, first one, expectations. So just, tell me in the chat, and those of you who are listening to the recording, you can feel free, text with me after you listen and just give me your feedback. But those of you who are here, tell me in the chat, put an emoji, put a brain emoji if you're neurodivergent, and a heart emoji if you are not. Brain emoji if you're neurodivergent in any way, and a heart emoji if you are neurotypical. There's gonna be a mix, just putting out there, so there's no better or worse one to be here. Okay. So when it comes to overwhelm, as you guys are seeing in the chats, a lot of hearts, a lot of brains, right? When it comes to overwhelm, how somebody who is neurotypical will deal with overwhelm, they still get overwhelmed, and someone who's neurodivergent will deal with overwhelm is very different. So those of you, thank you for sharing, by the way, in the chat, but if you can, describe to me in the chat what your overwhelm looks like. Like, what's the worst behavior that you put forward, quote unquote worst, as a result of being super overwhelmed? And if you're nervous to share with your name, you can send it to me privately and I'll see that and I'll read it. Scream and lash out at people. Very common neurodivergent way to respond to overwhelmed, overstimulation. Overworking myself and then being a martyr. We screw ourselves into a mess real easy. Ooh, I like a pop in chat. I gotta scroll. Hold on. Completely shut down. If I can't do everything, I just won't do anything at all. ADHD paralysis. I get paralyzed. Doesn't have to be ADHD paralysis. Could straight up just be overwhelmed. My brain feels like it's short circuits and I can't do anything at all. It's kind of same thing. ADHD paralysis, short fuse, moody, forgetful, exhaustion, reclusive. Yeah, kind of just to kind of go inward. Snap at others or disengage, and then rush myself. Ooh, rush myself. That's a really good one. It's important. Lash out, cry, muscle spasms, nerves pinching. So you get that physical, it's a somatic representation of overwhelm. Take on too many things for myself because it's overwhelming to ask everyone around me. Yep. So not asking for that extra help, because if you're overwhelmed, you're not going to want to, you're not going to know how to articulate asking for help. If that's not how you're naturally built to be, you're not going to be better at something you're not naturally like inclined to do during those overwhelming moments. We demand that of ourselves. That goes right into this whole expectation thing. But that's not like our shining moment to be really having such high expectations of ourselves, right? So get depressed, anxious, and stagnant, shut down, cry, get all done manic, and then needing a 12-hour nap, screaming, crying, swearing. Sometimes I'm even like ripped up the project I'm working on. Oh my God, yes. Like, I just want to throw it, right? Like I have been really genuinely nervous that I was going to break my phone because I got like barely any views on a video or something. And it was like super overwhelming to even get that video up, you know, where it's like, why would that help breaking my phone? Like that would literally actively make my life harder than it needs to be. But in the moment, it's like, you know, procrastination from overwhelm, and then take it all on too much and then end up inflamed. And then that inflammation is just a cycle, right? Because then we got to recover from it. And that's more mental fuckery, you know, pardon my language. Negative self-talk. Yep. And that's the loudest voice, right? I have that in here too. Someone privately called me out on my Instagram freakouts. Yeah, I'm such a brat about it because it's so stupid. Like I don't do well with authority in that regard. Like I'm not here to appease you, Instagram. I just want to talk about hormones, you know? So I definitely know about breaking the phone. Napping from overwhelm. Yep. So that's also something big to talk about in terms of resetting. Sometimes the overwhelm, we do need to completely tuck ourselves away and just kind of reset, neurologically reset, you know, that our nervous system needs to come down, decompress. It's not that we can't sort it out or we quote unquote don't have our shit together. It's that everything's firing off at once. Nothing can take center stage. So we're going to shove someone out onto center stage. You think they're going to perform well? We love an analogy, right? So also it's I noticed a lot of you guys talked about overexerting yourself, overextending yourself, trying to manically take it all on and burn out. That is the desire we have to overcompensate can come from so many things. But that behavior is kind of self-sabotaging if you think about it. I think Chelsea mentioned being the martyr, right? It's like we tuck ourselves into bed and then cry about it, you know, but that's like valid. It's hard. It's not like we're consciously thinking of it in the moment that it's going to play out like that. We're just in that pattern. So it's real, and getting out of that pattern is overwhelming. So if you're already overwhelmed, good luck. You know, it's just kind of like, it feels, I don't know if you guys can relate. Sometimes like the crash is you look forward to the crash because it forces you to stop. And it takes it off your back of knowing, when can I stop? But we also don't like the lack of control that comes with that. And we know logically that that's not our most efficient way to handle things. So what do? We raise our expectations. We put more pressure on ourselves. We get pissed at ourselves for not getting the laundry done, not washing the dishes, not walking the dog, not doing this, not doing that, not painting this guest room, not you know, going and ordering something you forgot to order last week, but it's not even important. Like it just becomes a snowball, like I was saying before, of things you're not doing, of things you're missing, people you're letting down, yourself, maybe you're letting yourself down, whatever. It just takes on a life. But is any of that real outside of between these ears? And I say that with no ego. I say that without any invalidation because I get it. Anytime I'm talking to you guys, I relate so much to these struggles. A lot of that's why I could talk to you about it, you know, is because I get it. But if it doesn't matter to anybody else outside of our head, It's still valid, it still matters to us, but the pressure and expectation that we put on ourselves is not necessary for the goals that we have, or for being human, for getting overwhelmed, for not feeling well. We didn't choose to do that because we're irresponsible or we're just a bunch of shitheads, right? Like we're all like adult people just trying to figure out how to like live their lives. And that's just hard without illness, you know? So factoring in illness, factoring in neurodivergency, where you're literally told this is the way in which you do something, and your brain is like, psych, you know, it's like you're not your average person. And that's okay to not love that. Like, you don't have to be under any false pretenses that you should be excited or not bothered in the least that you have a different mode that you have to operate in. It's okay to be bummed out about that. That's a part of illness acceptance. When you have invisible illnesses like these, and you know, we have hair issues, we got skin issues, we got weight issues, but yet it's still an invisible illness. Why? Because we turn around and put these expectations on ourselves to change all of these things as if it's something we're doing willfully. Like it's as if we're causing those symptoms to be the case. Like that's not it. So when we have those expectations sky high, and we're not giving ourselves any leniency, any like, you know, pat on the backs, anything, and we're not factoring in our illness, we're just going, we're waiting for that crash, we're always going to feel like when we get one step forward, it's easily 10 steps back. There's an inequality in the amount of energy we're giving the good momentum forward and the very human slower paces we're going to need to have. Thoughts so far? Thoughts on that? Where's that hitting for you guys? Because it's like, you know, what a motivational coach I have, she's telling me to lower my expectations. But it's deeper for us, you know? Oh my God, these roots. The Pete Davidson hair again. Next week's my hair appointment, so. Whew. I remember a day there was scalp and no roots, so I'll take the damn roots. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat here. I love it. I love that you love it. I didn't choose this, and it's okay that things are different for me. It's really validating because there's so much shame around not being able to do everything. 100%. Let it all go. Yes. Hitting home, a mantra I've said to myself many times, riding the wave. Yeah. Got no other choice. You know, maybe you don't even like waves, but there's no choice. You either just like get smacked by it or you try to ride that shit, you know? And that's really what it is that might seem like accepting something you don't want to accept, you know, that might feel like defeating, but it's not. It's the ultimate form of control and victory when you can say, I understand what I do not have control over, but I have control over my experience. I have control over whether I deem this suffering or if I'm just allowed to be like not having a great time right now. I have control over what I see as a good life. I have control over modifications that I don't feel guilty about making. In those regards, we always have control. Doesn't mean that that's going to be like 100%. You're never going to have any issues or have any emotional moments. That's just not human. But in regards to the overall theme of living with chronic illness and with so much that's out of our control, we do have control on the unnecessary expectations we put on ourselves. And I'm not saying that's natural. I'm not saying you're going to hear this call and be like, oh my God, I could just be so easy on myself now. It's fine. Like many of us are in here working on this shit for years, you know? So, and I don't think that if you were, it's my next point here, but I don't think if you were brought up to have those high expectations and sense of failure, like that's your programming. That's something that might need managing the rest of your life, like PCOS and Hashimoto's. You know, maybe that's not curable, but just like you can manage those other things, knowing that about how you feel and the pressure you put on yourself, maybe that is something to also think to manage long term rather than seek to get rid of it completely. Maybe we can't just undo our childhood programming, you know, at least not quickly, you know. Let's see what we're saying here. like my hubby telling me to relax and just chill, but so hard not to feel guilt for no clean laundry. Yeah, but other people are in the house too, right? They barreled over the no laundry situation. I'm sure, I mean, it's an inconvenience. It'd be great to have it done, but I don't think anybody is like, oh, we got to put this one out to pasture because my wash and fold didn't come through. That's usually our own perception of like how they would feel, but it's not. They got dirty drawers piling up too, like, so sometimes it's our own, our own feeling of like, but validated because I know I can't do it all, but I put that pressure on myself to do all the things, then I crash hard. hmm And it's hard recognizing that we're part of a cycle we don't intentionally do. That's like a really daunting thing to realize. And it's even more daunting when you realize it and you're like, well, how do I change this if this is how I've always been? It's not about changing it. It's just about shifting perception so that it doesn't feel like hell. But I'm getting the approval to relax, so why get so hard on myself? Because growing up I wasn't allowed to relax, and it's surprising being with someone who says it's fine. It doesn't feel safe, right? Like, that's the thing. If you grew up feeling unsafe or inconsistent in the love and the acceptance that was given to you, you don't just get that safe like partner and snap out of it. That you never just, like, if you don't know how to do something, you don't know how to do it. So if you're now in this safe relationship, sometimes that stability or that relaxed vibe, that lack of judgment, that genuine acceptance we want feels so foreign to us that it becomes unsafe. And then there's no parameters. Like, how do I know if I'm doing good or bad? And it's a mind fuck because it's like, I should be happy to have a safe partner, but that's not how we never got a safety mode necessarily. So how would we know what safe feels like? If it's something different that feels distinctly unsafe. So let's see here. That we're never going to get like the bottom of our to-do list. Yes, remember my analogy. There's no bottom of the pile. We all try to keep working towards the bottom of the pile. There's no bottom of the pile. You'd be dead. Even like billionaires never have a bottom of the pile. Money and shit, it doesn't matter. Even born with a trust fund, there's never a bottom of the pile in some regard. So we are never going to accomplish it all. So having more acceptance that it's just part of the process and to fill our days with what we can and just know that no one ever died of disappointment. That's my favorite line ever because it was having immigrant parents, having to learn that if your parent gets off the phone disappointed with you, it's not going to necessarily be the last time you ever speak to them, and you're not going to die regretting that the last time you spoke to your parents you didn't love them. Like, realizing that and the fact that that filters into things like career, your relationship, stuff like that. Nobody dies of disappointment. None of them. No one. Disappointment is not lethal. It's just uncomfy, and everyone's uncomfy sometimes. We all live, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. I think of a mortgage when I read that comment of like, it's kind of like a revolving debt, like we all want to not have a mortgage. We'd love to have a home free and clear. If you don't have a home free and clear, you kind of don't get pissed off that you have a mortgage every month, right? You're just like, that's my cost of living. That's me paying my way, and it's kind of just this, you don't expect it to be paid off tomorrow. And I think that there are a lot of things in life that if we think about it in that way, where it's like we live with it because it ends up serving us, that maybe we live with some dirty laundry because it serves us in other ways. It's never going to be that your laundry is just always going to be done. It'll pile up again. This weekend I had a very calm weekend and it was weird. It's hard to just relax sometimes, 100%. And that's also a neurodivergent thing too. There's focus in chaos, especially when that chaos is for other people. And when it's kind of easier to dedicate that energy and that time when we're having to hustle for what's expected of us. So when the expectations, again, that word, the expectations are for ourselves, what do we do with that? How do we structure that? It is really hard. Like, how could I be choosing to do absolutely nothing vital to my adult life for enjoyment right now? Whether that's rest, whether it's chilling outside, I don't know, like just doing nothing, doing something fun you want to do, like how could I possibly do that when I have all of this? Mm-mm. There's time for it all, even if it feels like there's not. So, okay, let's talk about burnout. Okay, so burnout. When it comes to having chronic illness specifically, symptom burnout or diagnosis burnout is a huge, huge thing. Having something new pop up for us that we're feeling, not knowing, is this a new diagnosis or is this just a bad day? Am I going to make this appointment for this doctor because I'm so sure it's this and I'm going to feel fine the week before? Am I going to be dismissed? Am I going to be heard? Am I going to sit in front of another person who has no idea what it's like and have to convince them that I deserve their attention? Like there's so much that goes into chronic illness. And I think that a lot of us don't really know how much that is, even though you probably all related to that in some way, what I just said at some point. I think it's still surprising when it's just so disruptive, because it feels like we should just be able to snap out of it. It feels like we gaslight ourselves into not feeling valid and how much we're struggling. And I think that just continues to perpetuate the stress bubble that makes our expectations high, makes us feel really lonely when those expectations aren't met. People who don't understand what it's like in this meat suit don't understand what it's like in this meat suit. So I think the burnout of like, well, what else do I have to deal with? Or the denial of gaslighting ourselves, because if I'm just too busy to think about all of this. Again, that's another thing that sets us up for a crash. So you're stronger, contrary to belief, because lots of things, including childhood, illness, trauma, and always and everything, lots of things can make us think that we need to listen to the fear because that's our protection. That is our boundary that's going to hold us back from getting into trouble, right? But we are so much stronger than that voice, as cheesy as that sounds, truly. Have you ever dreaded something that ultimately would take 5 minutes to do? That if you could just sit and do it, it would be done and it would be off your plate. But for some reason, those of you who heard my Eat the Frog video, this subject. But it's not that it takes long. It's not that it actually is hard to do. It could be returning something to the store. It could be, oh my God, I have like a pile of shit to return. And it has been on my everyday list, return shit. So like we all have that thing that makes no logical sense why we dread it. It's like, hold on, I had it. Oh, so it's like fear. And not, if we just go through things head on, and again, I'm not trying to dismiss what might make this difficult to do, but just the overall fact of the matter is that if we worked through whatever was holding us back and we went through these situations head on, they would probably, historically, this is true, be solved way faster. The thing we're dreading, the thing we're terrified about would probably be, you'd get through it head on than you would trying to dismiss it, deny it, gaslight it out of here. All of those things. It's the same thing. It's just, there's a lot of, like I said, a lot of reasons why, but it feels so much bigger than it is at the end of the day. So denial of it being a problem, right, really leads to feeling like, well, what actually is the reality? Am I this sick? Do I need these doctors? Are these doctors missing something? Am I in trouble? Is this going to get worse? Is this new symptom something that people are missing? And it leads to this entire, just black hole. Who has ever felt that burnout before? / who feels that way now? It's okay. And it can ebb and flow. You could get over it, feel really solid, and then get hit with something else that's like, oh, God damn it, now what? a lot of different juggling around of symptoms. Should I try this supplement? Should I go to this doctor? Should I do this treatment? Do I need this blood test? It's so much. It's so much. And when we don't feel solid in what we are doing, all the thoughts of what we could be doing lead us to burnout, that paralysis that I saw in the comments before, not doing anything then, or just, I don't know, stressing like friggin' hell, running around like a chicken with your head cut off, feeling like you're not getting anywhere despite working like crazy. So, what did I write here about that? So when this is all happening, and same thing with expectations, when that's bubbling up for you and you're feeling like you're getting overwhelmed by the expectations that you have on yourself, and you're in those running in circles, it's not that this is always going to be easy to do because I always say this, in the moment, it's very hard to snap yourselves out. It's usually a lot easier said than done after, before, stuff like that. So, but if you can, try to give yourself some kind of a centering thought, meaning this is all allowed to suck, but it'll get figured out. Where do I start? Or this is allowed to suck. It'll all get figured out. Do I need to take a minute? This will all get figured out. It's allowed to suck. But what do I need right now? Because our first thought is not to stop and check in with ourselves when we're in the middle of this like duty tornado that's going around us, and like we're feeling just completely inadequate and all that. Like, we're not thinking like, let me stop and make sure I'm okay. And I think that that's really can be from a lot of things. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, is number 3. I wrote here for number 3, I think, I don't know, ADHD, instead of writing the topic name, I just wrote a question. What does being a dick to yourself keep you from doing? In your honest opinion, being super hard on yourself, what do you feel like deep down, that's what keeps you from doing what? I'm asking that question in that way on purpose. What does being a dick to yourself do to keep, like, what does being a dick to yourself keep you from doing? Question I have written right after that is, why does it feel so irresponsible to stop being a dick to yourself? Let's see. Having mental peace. Yep. Keeping from moving forward, finding peace and balance, healing, enjoying my life. Yeah. But also subconsciously, do we feel like if we weren't assholes to ourselves, that we would just go off the rails? Like, if we weren't keeping ourselves in check, we would just be unemployed forever. We would be selfish, annoying to our friends. We would eat whatever we wanted. We would stop caring about anything. Like, does that ever, you feel like if I'm not diligent and on myself, then I'm not going to have discipline, and I'm going to, like, I got to have order and structure, organization. And we like yell at ourselves into doing that. Let's see what you guys are saying. It feels better to be angry right now. Yeah, it's extremely valid. My dog is on his way to my bedroom to probably find a tissue that I missed. Sammy, you guys saw him in the little corner, like on the bottom screen. Maybe because the people responsible for me were always dicks to me. You're gonna love my elaboration. Because who else is gonna tell me to do this? Yeah. And the only way to tell ourselves to do something is sternly, right? I get it. I've been there. I feel like if I weren't, nothing would ever get done. Appreciation for what I was able to accomplish, focused on what's not done, comparing myself to people's highlight reels in all areas of my life. Yep. These are good. If I don't hold myself accountable, no one else will, and no one else will get things done. So what I've seen here is that we consider being a dick to ourselves accountability and responsibility. do y'all parent the same way? Because I don't think anyone's trying to be a dick to their kids, right? Like, but he's got to learn. Like, I think we've learned that didn't work out for us the best, maybe. There's just a little bit more lesson giving, explanation, acceptance, a little less harshness, right? I wonder why. So I use this analogy. I was talking to a client the other day about it, and I don't know why this like really random seeming analogy stands out to me, but imagine that you had to learn how to install an electrical box. And the only way that you were going to learn how to do it is because the electrician who was teaching you was going to stand in front of you. And if you were doing it right, he's going to smile. And if you were doing it wrong, he was going to slap you in the head. And you didn't know you were doing it wrong until you got slapped in the head. And you had to somehow figure out why you got slapped in the head and hope that you learn. That would make no sense, right? Like nobody would learn that way. But so often in life, we don't even realize it. That's kind of how we're teaching. We're teaching by emotion. People get the negative response when they fuck it up. But that doesn't teach anything. So when we are just sitting there and we give ourselves this either, failure or success kind of ledge to fall off of, and we're being jerks to ourselves, and we think being a jerk to ourselves is the only way to keep ourselves accountable, how are we ever going to succeed? Would you ever figure out how to change the light box that way? You would never learn how to change that light box. You would just get slapped in the head a whole lot and learn that you suck at rewiring electrical boxes. And you would have wanted that electrician to be smiling and to be happy, but because you're you couldn't figure it out. Now, the electrical box thing's random, but is the moral of that analogy all that random? Because that's kind of what we do to ourselves. It's not accountability to hate on ourselves when we get it wrong. That's not useful accountability. That's not a lesson. That's not fixing anything. That doesn't make the future better because now you're equipped with better information and a new tool. That is slapping someone in the head because they're not wiring correctly. So like as kids even, like, okay, I say this and I'm like, I love learning about kids. I love it, but it's always until I have my own, gonna be from the place of like, I have no idea what I'm talking about, right? I've never raised children. I get that. But I think a lot about, and I've learned a lot about gentle parenting. And I think a lot of people think similar to how it sounds like if I'm not a jerk to myself, who else is gonna do it? Who's gonna keep this train going? Right? It's the same thing. People react that way when they hear about gentle parenting because what they think it means immediately is that you're going to get you're a pushover, you're going to get walked all over. There's not going to be any structure in your home. You're just going to flatter your kid all the time. And that obviously would not do well. But, or it's thinking that parents can never get mad, can never get mean. It's not that. It's the concept. And this is why it fascinates me. I think this will surprise no one. It's the concept of helping them regulate emotions and understanding why they are reacting that way. It's the concept of teaching. How many times as kids were we walking on a ledge or something and someone would yell, "Be careful." And if we fell, they'd be like, "Well, I told you to be careful." Isn't that the electrician that slaps you in the head when you get it wrong? Be careful of what? What does being careful mean? With my feet, with what I'm holding? Do I look at something? Do I watch my balance? Like, what exactly am I being careful of? And then not being condemned when you get it wrong, because that person has no idea why you're mad at them. Just like you would have no idea why you got slapped in the head trying to rewire the electrical box. No one can explain to you how to do things based on if they're happy or mad. So we do that shit to ourselves when it's okay to get things wrong. It's human to get things wrong. It's human to cope in a way that isn't the best for us. It's human nature to just completely throw caution to the wind and not care about things that are good for us. It's what you take from it, what you learn from it, and what you give yourself forgiveness and acceptance and say, this is why this happened, but that's not what I want to do. So going forward, here's what I could take from that, and here's what I would do differently. That is going to teach you how to be careful walking on the ledge, how to wire the electrical box. That is actually a instruction, a lesson, something to grow from. By cutting yourself off at the knees and telling yourself that you're shit because you're not doing everything and thinking that that's what's going to keep you motivated, that is chasing the wrong car, because it's not going to keep you motivated. It's going to keep you on an up and down, failure, success, failure cycle, versus consistently accepting human nature and striving to be more efficient for how we live. If we're just focused on a result, if that's ultimately what we want, is that result, to feel better, to be happier, to have easier time communicating, to feel confident, if that's the result you want, who gives a shit about the method in which you take to get there? Why do we think that being mean to ourselves is going to be the thing that gets us to that place? It's never worked being scolded as kids for something we didn't know why we got it wrong. We never just learn and say, oh, that's why they got mad at me. So it's hard. It's basically saying parent yourself, but that is the work. That's the work, because you got to be here on this earth for these days anyway. So whether you're spending those days pissed off about the shit that's not fair, or you spend those days just trying a little bit further to learn more, to grow more, to feel better, you're still going to get to a certain point in your life regardless, because you got to live those days. So it sucks that things take time. It sucks that a lot of us have, a million reasons why we are where we are, or how we are now. But that being said, we're not stuck. We just got to watch our expectations. We got to honor burnout. And we got to stop being a dick to ourselves, because it doesn't fix anything. Just like we wouldn't want our kids to be parented that way or treat themselves that way. So I want to know what you guys think, because I'm feeling vulnerable. The childless coach talked about kids. So tell me what you think, because it makes like logical sense if you think about it. I like to reflect on us. We were all kids once, right? Like, it makes sense. At least I think. And tell me if you don't think it makes sense. I love this dialogue. I'm not afraid or offended ever. Let's see. Going to be a test with my parents visiting for 2 weeks in the chat. Okay. So what do you think when your parents are visiting you, what tests you the most? What ends up being the biggest mindset struggle with them? And everyone else, tell me your thoughts in the chat. Judgmental, food choices. Okay. So if you would be comfortable enough to share, can you give me an example of something that they have said about your food choices in front of you that ruined a meal?
I'm just going to say it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Someone else's voice.
Okay. Well, the only thing I can specifically remember was back in middle school when I would have a sandwich and top ramen, and my dad gave me this like glare of too many carbs, and I was a horrible person.
Did he say anything about it?
He would say like, that's just too much, or yeah.
And now the glare, you probably attached it to the food because you'd seen him make that same glare or like look in regards to judging something else at some point. So it's probably like feeling like, oh God, I'm in that same bracket now. Like he thinks lowly of me.
Yeah.
What do you think about his eating choices?
He's definitely very strict with himself.
Do you think he's happy?
No, I don't think so.
So then when it comes to people like that, you can try to assert boundaries. You can say like, I'd prefer it if you just didn't mention anything about the way that I'm eating, and just see. A lot of times people that feel that invited to their opinion on what you're eating won't care. And at that point, I say to myself, like, if I can't get away from this person and I need to find a way to just kind of keep my thermostat so I don't dread being around them, I think to myself, I would never want someone who has never held a paintbrush in their entire life to criticize my painting, because the hell do they know? Like, what do they like now? If like someone else, I mean, even then, if someone who did paint criticized my paint, I'd be like, ew. But especially if someone has never, they don't know what they're doing, they're not happy, they don't know how to manage their own eating. It's kind of like a shitty opinion to have, like it doesn't mean anything. It's like, yeah. I use another example of someone who has never so much as parked a car before, criticize how you drive. It's kind of like, okay, like easy for you to say, but at the end of the day, he's only judging you and for what you're eating. He's only judging you on that because he is so unhappy with his own self and needs to be in control of eating. He can't fathom other people not being obsessed with their food. And that sucks, So if you need to get away, like I said, try to assert a calm boundary and just be like, we not talk about what I'm eating. If that doesn't work and it's even more triggering, try to remove yourself, go to the bathroom, go outside, just prioritize yourself, because some people will never change. And if we have to be around them, we come first, So let's see. I like this. Any other questions about help with managing expectations, burnout, or being a dick to ourselves? Taking food off my plate when I would make my plate, that drives me nuts. How can anyone think that that's okay? It's like heartbreaking to think of that, like I can't imagine doing that to a child without feeling personally upset, it's just wild. I've heard it so commonly. People were fucked up with their kids' food intake, their kids being us, the clients in here. I worked as a nanny for 4 years and really learned that gentle parenting actually gets you the results you want. It's so cool. I could see the kids actually learning and growing, but it feels so much harder to do that to myself. Absolutely. I pride myself. I remember one time we have a cousin who is not into the whole like understanding psychology thing, like very much a live, laugh, love, positivity only, don't get yourself down. There's people who have it worse, so make sure you're always happy. Like I love her dearly, and it's not my place to try and change that, but that is the way she is. Now, her daughter was having a meltdown, and it was like a half-hour tantrum before we even got to the house. And then when we got there, I was like, I'm going to test out some shit. This is not my kid. And she's at her wit's end. She's like in the garage trying to call her husband, like, please come home. She won't stop. So let's try it. So I went up to her and I'm like, hey, Valentina, like you look like you're really upset. Can I give you a hug? And she, no. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, no problem. I'm just going to sit over here then. I was like, is that cool? She's like, no. I'm like, okay, I'm going to move back farther. It's like, so you sound pretty upset and pretty sad. And like slowly but surely, just like if it were an adult, which is really cool that kids are a lot more just emotionally intelligent than we give them credit for, just through validating their feelings, because like what they're going through doesn't feel good. None of us enjoy sobbing and stomping and freaking the fuck out, right? So like they're feeling all of those things. So it took a while. And again, not my kid. And like I left and I came home to my quiet ass house. So like my threshold, like, but it was amazing because it was the first time I actually saw an in person, not on YouTube, demonstration of how mushy kids are in tantrums. Like, I don't think this would work every time. Again, I feel weird talking about it, but I was so happy because within maybe 10 minutes, she was sitting in my arms, like doing that thing. She's like, because she'd just been like screaming for 45 minutes, and just was able to say that she was really sad. She missed her dad. She felt really lonely and she wasn't comfy, and it's like very simple emotions. I think even as adults, we can relate to, we just have the capacity to regulate that emotion. So we're not stomping and screaming and freaking out. And sometimes we still do, so gentle parenting is really cool. It's, again, I don't know everything about it, but it's like fucking interesting, little brains. My family is the same. They openly comment on everyone's food choices. My uncle literally looks at everyone's plate and tells them how many calories they're eating. Why does this uncle get invited? That is a buzzkill on every degree. Uncle Lester, disinvite him from the holidays. Tell him your coach said he's canceled. And probably cooks like shit. So I would literally just, I mean, maybe laugh. Like when he gets to your plate, just laugh and be like, I don't care. And then if he says anything after that, like maybe go sit somewhere else, walk away, be rude. I mean, people do rude things. They should expect rude responses. If you don't want to have a tussle at the holiday party, I get that. But I would just make him feel ridiculous for making the comment and then try to change the subject and move on. I'm sorry, you got to deal with that. Ew. People who are happy with their lives typically don't typically try to control other people. I think also like the sense of control is different because you could say like maybe it's the way that they show love, not okay still. But as someone with OCD, I could see sometimes how I've had to work really hard on not being invasive because I feel like if I don't take that step to help, or in the past, I felt like if I didn't take that step to help, I was not doing them a service. I didn't realize until therapy and being conscious to not affect my loved ones made me realize that like not my responsibility, not my thing, not being perceived as helpful. So obviously I work hard on that. But most people, I would venture to say, make commentaries and criticisms simply because they're annoying as people and have some kind of insecurity of their own. They just wouldn't give a shit if they were happy and not insecure, you know? So my parents would make us eat what they gave us and then tell us we're getting too fat from eating too much. Oh man, this is why I got smacked around a lot. My immediate response would be like, stop cooking it then. Like, I'm eating your food. Like you're making the food you're saying is making me fat. So stop fattening me up. You know, like I would have been a smart ass, but in no way is that okay. Nope. I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that. It's common. It's common. I get so keyed up because I'm just like, what the is wrong with people? You know, like their intentions are whatever, but like to a point, it's like, you don't realize people don't feel good when you do this. And doesn't that upset you when people don't feel good because of your interaction with them? Do you guys understand people like that? Because like it physically hurts me if someone is upset by a conversation I have with them. You know, ugh. How many anxious nights have been spent ruminating over a conversation from last week? Someone may have seemed a little upset, you know, and then you have people who just don't care if they ruin someone's entire holiday meal or holiday. Just crazy, crazy, crazy. Humor and gentle sarcasm work super well. It really does. It disarms them because it's like, anyone see 8 Mile in here? Yeah, 8 Mile at the end with the rap battle, where this whole movie, Eminem's like he chokes when he gets on stage to do a rap battle. He just freaks out. If someone goes first, they annihilate him, and then he's got nothing. And at the end, he wins so he could start the rap battle, and he takes his entire segment and just talks shit on himself, like says all of the things that you could possibly say to him to make him look bad, seem crap, like just anything. And he says it. And then at the end, he's like, okay, what do you got now? If I said it all and I don't care, like, please add to this. And the guy choked. And I was like, oh, you know, the whole point of the movie. But it's kind of true, you know, to a degree, if you arm someone with the ability to be like, well, I didn't mean anything that serious about it, you feel even worse. But if you just laugh them off, even though you want to curse them off in your head, if you laugh them off and make them feel like you don't give a shit about what they're saying to you, then, I mean, their point was to have their voice heard, right? And you take that away. So, and it makes you look like you don't care, which nobody should be in on that journey with you who doesn't want to be in that journey with you. If you feel like crap about yourself, that is an invite only supportive group, you know? So I try that method with my my boyfriend's little brother. Yeah. Talk back, but then laugh. I hate that everyone has similar trauma, but I feel so validated. Woo, this is great. Thank you everyone for being so vulnerable. He literally tells me things he tells no one else. And his mom is like, how do you get these things out of him? You don't make him terrified to talk to you, you know, because of judgment and criticism. Not weird to feel out of place because you simply don't belong at the table. I worked with families and babies as part of the early intervention program and had this exact conversation daily. It is possible, and children are wired to learn that way. Many times parents need to see it working to give it a try. The change is immeasurable. Talking about gentle parenting, it's incredible. And I think also the idea that parents aren't allowed to get frustrated, angry, mad, overstimulated, touched out, talked out, those are all still valid. It's the idea of regulating that on your own so that it doesn't become a life lesson that your child unintentionally picks up of, I don't know what I did, but I really am, my mom's disappointed in me, or my parent is disappointed in me, you know, because it's not what we want to do. But that whole adage of, if I scare the shit out of my kid, they're never going to do it again. They're going to not do a lot of things again, you know? So it's not no one's going to get snapped out of a tantrum by getting assaulted, you know? So it's just the idea of seeing it work and being like, I can go scream in a pillow. I can go punch a pillow. I could go cry in the rain outside for a second and come back in. And when I'm ready, I could do this, you know? I think that's the difference there. People just think it's that you don't care and you let them walk all over you, but it's just a lot of, someone said it before, co-regulation, a lot of just, you know, dealing with the frustration and trying to see why they're having these big feelings. I'm probably going to scream at my kid at some point. I'm just saying, this is really interesting and I'm going to try not to. So super cool. The family is really weird about food and can't make the connection that eating a certain way is about health, not always about weight. And it's frustrating. I was on vacation recently and mentioned I need to find something gluten-free on the menu, and a family member started talking about diets and working out. My mom didn't understand that me cutting certain foods out isn't because I'm on a diet. She doesn't even begin to grasp the way food affects the body, which also creates some resentment because I feel she's a big reason that I developed the body dysmorphia and disordered eating I did later in life. Well, if you did not just put into words some shit I hear all the time, absolutely. It's frustrating, especially for those who have family members who don't validate their illness and think that it's real or that it should impact you the way it does. There's nothing more frustrating than an able-bodied individual invalidating a daily struggle you go through, because you saying you go through it should just be enough. Like, that should be proof that done. You wouldn't have an illness if you didn't, like, you don't just want, it's not trendy, you know, like, it's not like you would want to be the spectacle at the event and be able to eat 3 things out of everything else there. Like, sometimes, and I say this knowing, because I know that we talked about this, that you have tried to tell her in the past many times that you're not just doing it for a diet and that it makes you sick. Some people, it's just about being the thermostat and preserving and trying to block them out. If you have to be with them, tune them out, because they just are never going to get it. Let's hope they don't ever get diagnosed with a hormonal illness. I also love saying something along the lines of, with all the craziness going on in the world right now, I'm going to eat this piece of pie. Yeah. Yeah. You know, like, and that's where, if you remember the worth it questions, oh shit, we're so over. I'm so sorry, guys. But I love this. The comments are great here. I'm going to cap it off after the ones that are here. I'm going to cap it off. Okay. So, and then anything else, send me on text, because I want to make sure it's heard. But, where was I in here? Oh, worth it questions. So the worth it questions are pinned to the top of the CCA page. And it's basically to set up the idea that eating something, if you decide this is worth the recovery, this one item does not need to lead to other items. This is something I am choosing to have. It's something that I will not, you know, there's no other replacement for it. This is special to me. This is something I'm choosing. I'm not using it as a crutch, a weapon, a reward. You are allowed to make that decision. If you wanted to eat something that made you sick, you know, us, we never give a shit, because you know that what happens. And sometimes that is worth it, and that is okay. And it's all about our own lived experience. It's not up to anybody else to judge how you're going to feel after eating that pie. You know, you're an adult. You're allowed to make those decisions. Feeling out of control by eating the pie is what leads to us eating pie and us not even enjoying eating that freaking pie. It's just an emotional reaction. a binge, versus like you said, I'm gonna eat this slice of pie. I'm choosing to, and it's okay. It's not up for debate, So let's see. They think I'm being dramatic about having to be gluten-free. Like, no, I physically can't eat it. Why would I want to have this complicated, restricted gluten-free diet? So something real easy. I don't know if anyone else gets the runs from gluten, but once you start telling people that happens, they shut up pretty quick. I have actually said to a waiter who has been annoying and questioned it to me and past a server, I'm like, I tried to be polite, I tried to explain, and then finally he was like, I mean, but if it's not like an allergy, you'll be fine, right? And I was like, well, I mean, I won't die of anaphylaxis, but I will shit blood tomorrow. So I don't want that to happen. Because again, give rude responses, get rude responses. So be like graphic about it. Be like, if I eat that gluten, I'm going to be farting a storm tomorrow. I'm going to be hurting. I'm not going to be able to breathe right. I'm going to be moody, and I don't need to be that way. So I'm going to choose not to. Make it awkward. It's okay. They should learn to shut up, So calories are the least of my worries. Truly, most of us are under eating. My parents now help my sister gentle parent my nephew. That's amazing. I love that. It didn't make us feel like shit. If it didn't make us feel like shit or harm us, yeah, honestly, they see it where, oh, yep, I'm just reading the chat. Those of you who are listening to the recording. I'm gonna make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah. So, okay, got them all. So anything else that we want to talk about, make sure you text me. I love carrying on convo after here. But remember, you can choose, you can consent to these stupid conversations with people, to laugh them off, you could do whatever. But between the ears here, stop being a dick to yourselves. It's not keeping you any more on the straight and narrow. Or otherwise you wouldn't have a reason to be a dick to yourself, right? If it worked so well. So stop that. Gentle parent. Maybe look that up, gentle parenting, and learn to do it for yourself. It's really good stuff. 2, burnout, honor it. Honor it. Take the time that you need to recalibrate. Ask yourself some centering questions. This will all get figured out. It's allowed to suck. What do I need right now? Right? And then lastly, expectations. If you find yourself snowballing out of control with all of the shit you're not doing enough of, you're missing, you should be doing more, blah, blah, blah. Same thing. Ask yourself that centering question, because that will lead to burnout. All right, so I know this lesson was a little bit jumbled, but I feel like I tried to connect all the biggest points we've been hearing. It's all valid. It's stuff we hear all the time. If this bogs you down, feel free to text us about it. And I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.